Hey guys, this is Dooley. In this video, we will continue talking about the file system module in Node.js. Today, we'll talk about a couple of functions that will allow us to read the contents of a directory. So, what we'll need to provide to these functions are the path of that directory, and this path could be in the form of a string. It could be a buffer, essentially the raw data representing that name or the path to that directory. And we can optionally provide some options, and these options could be in the form of a string. And when you provide the string, it will just be some string saying what kind of encoding you'd like the files to be in. Okay, so the files will be as return value to the callback, or if you use the synchronous version, this will return an array containing the files names. Okay, and the other option, actually not the other, but the other way you can provide some options by providing an object, and that object will have an encoding property where you will detail essentially the same thing if you were using a string. As a string, you can also provide buffer. Okay, so when you provide buffer as a string for option, what it will do, it will just give you the raw data. It will give you an array where the names of each file will be a buffer. That's just going to be the raw data for that string. All right, so you can provide a callback if you're using the asynchronous version of the function, and this callback will get an error if one occurs, and the file an array containing the names of the files that were read from that directory. Alright, so let's go ahead and try and use these functions and see how we can read the contents of a directory. So what I've got here is I'm pulling the file system module. Here I've created a couple of local variables. One is the directory text files. As you can see here, I have one in here, and here I'm creating a buffer just to show how you would provide the buffer, and it's no big deal. It's just substituting one for the other. Alright, so let's use the synchronous version first and see how we can read the contents of the text files directory. Alright, so let's create a local variable. Let's call it files. That's what will contain the array of files that are read from that directory, the names of them, or the path. Okay, so let's go with files. Let's make that call, fs.readdirSync. So that is the synchronous version. All we need to provide here is the directory, and that's all. Okay, there's no need for us to provide options. We can if we'd like, and actually we will after we just try and see what this looks like. So console.log, I want to log the files. Okay, as you can see, let's run this. What you get is an array of strings containing the names of the files that are in that directory. So you get buff, dir, file path, flags, and my path. Alright, so it's as easy as that, and that's the synchronous version. The other thing you can provide here is the encoding. So you could either provide it with a string. By default, this encoding will be UTF-8, but you can provide the other encoding if you like. One interesting one you can provide is the buffer one. Okay, so what this will do, it will give you an array of buffers representing the names for each of these files. Alright, so it simply gives you the raw data. So that's what the difference is between the different encodings. Okay, and you can provide this also as an object. Okay, which has a property. Again, by default, this is UTF-8, and you can provide interesting buffer case here. So this will essentially have the same effect and do the same thing for you. Alright, so this is how you would use the synchronous version of this function. Now let's go ahead and use the asynchronous version, which is fs.readdir. So let's do that, fs.readdir. Okay, now let's use the buffer this time. Buff. Alright, we can provide the encoding if we'd like, but we know what that's like, so let's just use uh, the callback here. So error and then files. Okay, we always want to check for errors, right? Okay, if there's an error, let's just print it to the console. We'll print the message. Okay, and if there is no error, we want to just print out what files we got. Alright, so let's run this and see what we got. And here we go. Alright, so it essentially has the same effect, but it's doing this differently here. This is an asynchronous call. If your program was doing a bunch of things here, you would not be waiting for this to complete. Whereas if you had done it synchronously, your program would be waiting for this to be done before it moves on. Alright, so this is the video, guys. This is how you read the contents of a directory. A couple of ways to do it. One is synchronous, one is asynchronous. The path could be just a string, could be a buffer, it could be a URL. You can provide options, and these options will essentially be about encoding. Could be a string, or it could be an object with an encoding property in it. And there is a callback you can provide when you use the asynchronous version of the function, and when this callback will be passed an error if an error occurs, and the files that were read from that directory. And if you use the synchronous version, the return value of that function will be an array containing the names of the files in that directory. Alright guys, again, this is Dooley. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you like the videos, and I'll see you next time.